What's up, fellas? In this video, I'm going to tell you if it's possible to make a full-time, long-term income from sports betting. Is it possible to actually be a professional gambler in 2024, in 2025, in the modern day, and the steps you need to take to know if you can do that and then to actually accomplish that. So I'm speaking from my experience. All of these videos that I make on my YouTube channel, on my social media, wherever it may be, is coming directly from my experience. I've been betting on sports for over 15 years, and there's been many times throughout my sports betting career where the only income of my entire life has been from sports betting, and that's what's kept me afloat. So I'm speaking 100% from experience here. This is not theory, this is practical, which is the knowledge that you want to know, right? You don't want to know things in theory. Although it helps to understand them, it's very important to know the knowledge in practice, because the knowledge in theory isn't always the way it plays out in the real world. And that couldn't be more true than in sports betting, because theoretically you can do a lot of things in sports betting. But when it actually comes down to it, the mental side is so key in sports betting that you may not be able to actually follow through the theory. And I'll explain a little bit more what I mean in this video, but yeah, this whole video is going to tell you exactly how to become a professional gambler, how you can do it full time, etc., etc. So first of all, we have to understand that it is possible, right? There's been people for the last 40, 50 years that have made their full long-term income from sports betting, right? Some of the people that have made the most money in the world in, I won't call it business, but in trading, in gambling, whatever it may be, have been sports bettors. Billy Walters is probably the most well-known sports bettor. He's been on the Joe Rogan Experience recently. He's just released a book. The guy's betting millions of dollars on games very regularly, right? So it is possible to be a full-time sports bettor. You can do it, and you have to believe you can do it for you to be able to achieve it. Because there's a lot of people out there that say statements like "the house always wins." The house always wins refers to casinos, not to bookmakers and sports betting, right? I ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole, but basically the first thing I wanted to mention is that it is possible. You can make a long-term, full-time income from sports betting, but it's not easy, right? So first of all, we have to understand it's possible. Second of all, we have to understand that it's not easy. Now, I'm not gonna tell you every single step on how to become a professional gambler, because there is 100 different things you need to know. And if you wanna know those things, go and look through the library of the videos I've been making for the last 5 years on this YouTube channel to help you do that, right? I speak about emotional control, discipline, bankroll management, how to pick out bets, etc., etc. But I'm just going to tell you a few important things that you need to understand if you want to become a pro gambler, right? These things are stuff that cannot be avoided, and it's going to help you a lot in your journey. So the first thing I want to speak about is track data, right? I've written it down here, track data. Hopefully you can see this. There's a little bit of glare, but track the data. And what that means is that the only way you're going to become a full-time gambler is if you know that the money that you can make can sustain your full-time living, right? So firstly, what you want to do is know how much you have to pay for rent, know how much your bills are, know how much your food is, know how much you spend on recreational stuff, on clothes, on holidays, whatever it may be. You need to come up with a sum per week, per month, per year, all of that. Come up with a sum of the amount of money that you need to sustain your lifestyle. That's the first thing you need to know, right? And then with tracked data, and what I mean by tracked data is you need to be tracking your betting results for at least 2 to 3 years before you even decide to go full time. Because if you don't track it for 2 to 3 years, if you just track your results for 6 months, you don't know whether you're going to be able to keep those results up for the next 6 months. In fact, you're definitely not. You're never going to have a period where 2 6-month results are exactly the same. It's basically never going to happen, right? So you need to track your results for at least 2 to 3 years to know if the amount of money you've won in those 2-3 years can sustain your lifestyle for the next 2 to 3 years, right? And obviously the way we know that is by tracking your data. So track your bets. Tracking your bets is the most important thing you can do as a sports bettor. It's like literally the concrete foundational #1 thing that you can do. And it's gonna help you with many, many things in your sports betting journey, but it's definitely needed if you wanna do this full time. So track your bets, track your data, and however much money you have earned in that period, work out if that is enough to sustain your lifestyle when you did the previous equation where I was telling you to calculate all your bills, your groceries, etc., and finding out how much money you need to earn, right? If you're not earning enough money from your sports betting career to sustain you, well then you can't go full time yet. You're gonna need to start earning more money. So then it comes into a question of, okay, James, how can I earn more money? Well, there's two ways to earn more money. Either you win more bets, or the bets that you place are for a higher stake. That's the only two ways you can make more money in sports betting, right? Now, we will speak about increasing your bet size here, right? Obviously, you can win more bets, but if you start to place more bets, you're increasing volatility. There's a reason you didn't place more bets in the first place, probably because you wasn't confident in those bets. So we don't want to be placing loads of bets just in hopes to make more money so we can go full time. That's a stupid way of doing it. You can place more bets by connecting with professionals in other sports and start to bet on other sports. And that's what I do now. I bet on MMA. I originate in MMA and I do my own research for MMA betting, but I also consult with pros in many other sports and I bet on other sports based on their recommendations. So you can do that, but that's another video for another day and I ain't gonna touch on that one. It's very self-explanatory, right? So I don't need to mention it. Connect with pros in other sports and start betting on their selections. That means you're gonna earn more money because you're gonna increase the amount of bets you win, right? As long as they're good pros, obviously that's why I say pros and not amateurs. But in this video, I'm gonna speak about bankroll, right? Big bankroll. So like I said, two ways you can do it. Two ways you can increase the amount of money you earn from sports betting. Place more bets, win more bets, or increase the stake of your current bets, right? So I've got a video on bankroll and you can go and watch it. I can't remember exactly what it's titled, but you can go and watch it. I think I've done a couple of videos on the bankroll. And basically the bankroll is the amount of money that you have to spend on sports betting, right? You have a bankroll and that's what you do. Now, if you go full time, your bankroll is basically all the money you have anyway, basically, right? Because if you're paying your bills out of your bankroll, well, then you don't have a separate account for your bills, right? Like your bankroll is essentially your bills. If I have $100,000 and I'm a full-time gambler, then if I'm using $100,000 to bet on sports, if I'm paying my bills out of that $100,000, that means I'm paying my bills out of my bankroll. So your job is to get your bankroll as big as possible because that's what you're using to live on. That's what you're using to bet on. That is what a full-time gambler is, right? So we want to be increasing our bankroll as much as possible. How do we do that? Win more bets and add to our bankroll. So what I always say is that if you're thinking about going full-time and if you've gone through the first step of tracking your data and you understand that, okay, I win this much percent per year, I win this many points per year, this many units per year, my ROI has been this for 5 years, you know, I know that with the current results I have, I will be able to sustain my life moving forward if I keep up with these results or on average around these results, as long as I have X number as my stake, right? If you're making, just for ease of understanding, if you are making 100, if you've tracked your data and you understand that on average, you're gonna win 100% every year, 100 units every year, and you need $100,000 to sustain your lifestyle per year, well then you know that your unit size needs to be $1,000. aka your bankroll needs to be $100,000, right? Because you're gonna earn that every year. Now obviously it's gonna be different for every person, but just to understand, you need to know the figure that you need to have per year, that you need to earn per year, and then you need to know what your unit size is gonna be in accordance to that. Our unit size is gonna grow as our bankroll grows. So what I was saying is that I always tell people before they go full time, track the data, understand the amount of money they need, and then add to your bankroll as much as possible, right? If you already have a bankroll big enough to go full time, well then go full time. But most people watching this video are not gonna have a bankroll big enough to go full time. They're just not, right? That's just plain fact, they're not. And you always wanna have money in excess, right? You always wanna have money saved up. So if you need a $100,000 bankroll to go full time, based on the two equations I've already said earlier in the video, it's probably better if you have $200,000 because you never know what cold streaks you're gonna go on. You never know what downtrends you're gonna go on. You never know what crazy stuff is gonna happen in your life. You might have a big payout, you might have an accident, you might have insurance claim, whatever it may be. You should always have more money than you need, right? So if you need a $100,000 bankroll, you should have $150,000 altogether, right? Just so you have some money to fall back on. Because at the end of the day, gambling it's a gamble. It's a risky game. And I've experienced that it's a lot better mentally when you know you have money to fall back on, right? If I have a $30,000 buffer to fall back on, even though I only need 100,000, like let's say I have $130,000 in the bank, but I know I only need $100,000 to go full-time gambling based on the equations I've done myself earlier in the video that I told you about. If I have $130,000, I'm just gonna feel a lot better about it, right? So make sure you have a big bankroll. That's literally what all it comes down to, right? And the way you do that is, I've literally made a video on that before, but the way you do that is by winning more bets, tracking for longer, doing gambling as a part-time second income for longer, so your bankroll is increasing, and you're not spending that bankroll on your daily things because you haven't gone full-time yet. You're still earning money from outside sources, whether that be a 9 to 5 you have or whatever it may be. You want to be increasing your bankroll on the side before you go full-time, right? Just keep increasing it by winning bets. Obviously, this is all predicated on being a plus EV bettor. I hope you haven't got this far in the video and think that anyone can do this. This is obviously predicated on you being a plus EV bettor, but if you are, these are the steps. And you will know if you're a plus EV bettor by doing the track data. So to be honest, even if you have got this far in the video, you will never pass number one, which is the first thing I spoke about, unless you are a plus EV bettor. So there's a lot to cover here, guys, right? So bear with me. But basically at this point, we want to be making our bankroll big enough. At the end of the day, it's not hard to go full time. You just need to have a big enough bankroll to sustain your lifestyle. That's really it. Now the caveat here, and there's many caveats through the whole video, and I'm not going to tell you them all because I don't want the video to be a 45-minute video because people won't watch it. I want it to be easier to digest, and we're already going for a while. But the caveat here is that once your bankroll increases, it's going to be harder for you to get money down. But you can get money down. It's not impossible. You'll always be able to make money down. Put money down, it just becomes more of a pain in the ass, etc, etc, etc. So if you have a $10 million bankroll, you ain't really going to be able to bet on sports with all of that 10 million. Maybe if you have connections to some sports book in Vegas, etc, etc. I don't know about that. I ain't from America. Go speak to those guys. I don't think that if you have a $10 million bankroll, you're going to be able to be betting very easily. Obviously, you can do it with runners, other people that play, etc, etc. I ain't going to go into that. I just did want to be open, honest, transparent and tell you that there is a cap with this big bankroll, right? If you have 20 million, you're going to be capped on your bet sizes, right? But for 99% of the people on the planet, you're going to be able to live a healthy lifestyle as a sports bettor as long as you're plus EV. You can get money down. It just does become a bit of a hassle. So make sure your bankroll is big enough. Make sure your bankroll can sustain you. And that's it. That is the second phase done. The last thing you have to understand, and this is where the theory turns into practical, right? So the first two things I told you are basically theory, like they're equations. It's not that hard to understand, right? But the third thing is risk tolerance. Now, this is something that you can speak about in theory and you think you understand it, but when it actually comes to the practical application of it, it can destroy any man, right? Even if they understand this theoretically. Now, what I mean by risk tolerance is you have to understand that gambling is a risky game. Inherently, gambling is super risky. It's not easy to gamble. You will go through negative streaks that will destroy you mentally. It's gonna happen. It's happened to me many times. It's gonna happen to you many times. It's happened to every gambler on the face of the planet. They have gone through terrible, terrible negative/cold streaks that have impacted them mentally. Because if you're a full-time gambler, if you're relying on this money to make an income, then it's not easy to go through down streaks. Now, this is where we fall back on the track data. If you have a long-term, multiple-year tracked data, which tells you that no matter the down streaks and the up streaks you go on, you're gonna earn a certain amount of money long-term, then it's much easier to deal with mentally, right? Like, if I go on a down streak nowadays, it doesn't really affect me because I have literally 8 years worth of data tracked on sports betting that I can look at and say, all right, maybe you ain't doing good right now, but this is the average that you're gonna be doing for the last 8 years. That's not gonna change dramatically over the next few years. If anything, you're gonna increase because I'm getting better at gambling every year, and obviously the edges change, so there might be certain periods within the year that we're not doing great because of the new edges, etc., etc. But basically, I can look back on my track data and I can say, all right, don't worry so much about this down streak because it's gonna average out to this sooner or later, right? So that is why it's so important to track your data. And like I said, there's many benefits of tracking your data, but that's definitely one benefit. But you really have to understand that you need to be a risky person to be a full-time gambler. You ain't gonna be a full-time gambler if you ain't risky, right? There may be people out there, I mean, like if you do arbitrage betting or something like that, you don't have to be that risky. There are forms of gambling that maybe it doesn't take the mental fortitude of a sports bettor, but, or you know, you obviously arbitrage in sports betting, but somebody who is a handicapper, right? Like being a handicapper, you have to have heavy mental fortitude because gambling's gonna test you. You're gonna be hit with KYCs, know your customer, by multiple bookmakers. You're gonna have bookie accounts that just hold your money, right? I did a video on that a couple of days ago where I told you about 2 bookmakers that held my money for a long time, didn't give me my money back. Eventually they did give it back, but that was a struggle for me. I needed that money and they didn't give it back to me, right? So you're gonna go through things like that. You're gonna go through terrible cold streaks where you lose every bet in a row for like 20 bets and you think you're the worst gambler in the world, at least early on, right? You're gonna have to deal with all of these things as a full-time gambler. So you have to ask the question of yourself, do you really wanna deal with that? Can you deal with that? To be honest, most people can't deal with that. That's the ugly truth about sports betting is that, first of all, most people are shit at sports betting, right? But like that goes without saying. Like obviously we know most people don't win at sports betting, right? It's literally recorded. You can Google it. I think it's less than 1% of people actually earn money from sports betting long term. But once we've got past that, once we get onto the 1% who actually earn money or could earn money long term, because I actually think there's a lot more than 1% who could earn money, right? Because handicapping and finding the edge, that skill is not that hard in my opinion. Obviously, most people couldn't do it. Maybe like 70% of people couldn't do it. I still think it's a decent skill to have. I still think it's kind of a hard skill. But I think 20 to 30% of the people, or maybe even more than that, of the population of sports bettors, if they actually was taught by someone and abided by certain principles in their chosen sport, they could be a decent handicapper and able to find value every week on the specific markets that they're betting at. The reason why 20 to 30% of people don't earn money is not because they can't pick value out. It's because, or they can't learn to pick value out, it's because of the risk tolerance side, right? They can't tolerate the risk needed to be a full-time gambler. They can't control their emotions to be a full-time gambler. They can't battle with the mental aspect of gambling, which is gonna hit you the more and more you grow. The more amount of money you try to place down, the harder it's gonna be. The more bets you cash, the more you're gonna get ahead of yourself and think you're the dog's bollocks. And then when you go on a losing streak, it's gonna be even harder to bounce back because you just went on a hot streak. And there's so many different things you have to understand on the mental aspect of the game when it comes to gambling. So, you know, all of this stuff is, you know, in theory is fine and you need to do that. But you also have to be very honest with yourself and say to yourself, do I have what it takes to actually be a full-time gambler? Do I really want to be in this game where every single week, every single day, every single month, depending on what sport you bet on, I am beholden to my results? Because that's not easy, right? Like if you work a normal job, a normal 9 to 5, then unless you're an idiot and you're doing no work at all, for the most part, doesn't really matter what you do, you're still gonna get paid, right? Unless you're on an incentive only contract, which 99% of people are not out there. If you come and you have a bad week at work, you're not really feeling up to it, you don't really perform that well, they ain't gonna sack you after a week, right? You're still gonna get your paycheck. But that's not the same with gambling. You know, actually with gambling, it's the opposite. Not only do you not get paid if you have a bad week, you actually lose money, right? So you can imagine what would it do to the mental health of people in the 9 to 5 world, where if you didn't perform well, not only did you not get paid by your boss, you had to pay your boss. It wouldn't work. It would be impossible, right? People wouldn't do it. Society would crumble. That's exactly how it is in sports betting. So, you know, looking at sports betting, it seems all fancy and, oh yeah, I can just bet on sports and have fun. And actually, practically, it's not easy, right? But you can do it. You know, I do it. Or maybe not millions, but tens of thousands of other people, maybe hundreds of thousands of other people worldwide do it. It can be done. You just have to make sure that you have the right mind for the game. So that's really the only things I wanted to speak about in today's video. Like I said, this video can literally be 2 hours. I can tell you the ins and outs on how to find value, etc., etc. But I want to condense it into a specific thing. Hopefully after this video that you've watched it, and if you made it this far, shout out to you, because you're obviously serious about this. But if you have made it this far, you should understand that going full-time is a decision that, and this is what I want to end the video with, going full-time is not a decision that you should make lightly. It's not a decision that you should make willy-nilly. It's not a decision that you should just make after one night of thinking about it. You should think about it for a long time. You should understand that for a lot of people, having it as a second income, having sports betting as something you do on the side is going to be a lot more healthy for your mind, a lot more beneficial for you in general. And going full-time, although it may seem appealing, it has its cons as well. And I think for the majority of people, they shouldn't go full-time. I'm literally telling you that right now. I don't think you should, because I think the majority of people cannot handle it. And it's just too much of a pain in the ass for the majority of people. But that doesn't mean that's everybody, right? And you can still do it, but have a long think about it. Make sure you do not go full, if you are thinking about it now, do not go full-time without doing everything I've said in this video, without tracking your data for many years, without doing the equations I've told you, without making sure that you 100% can sustain your lifestyle based on the amount of money you need per month, per year, per week, versus how much money you're earning from sports betting per month, per week, per year. Always try and increase your bankroll, because that's gonna, you know, without increasing your living expenses, right? Increase your bankroll, because that's always gonna give you more of a buffer. If I've got a bankroll that's 10% higher than it needs to be for me to sustain my living expenses, mentally it's gonna be a lot easier. So make sure you have a big bankroll, and always add to your bankroll before you go full-time. That's something that people don't really understand. But depending on your bankroll, it's gonna be hard to grind up from $10 units to $1,000 units. It's gonna take you a long time, right? So you should always be adding to your bankroll as much as possible, obviously safely, only if you're a plus EV better. That goes without saying. And the last thing, you know, once you've done all of this, you're kind of ready to go full-time. But the most important thing that you maybe haven't addressed is the risk tolerance and just the risk level of going full-time. Can you handle things mentally when things are not going your way? Can you handle things mentally when you got 25 grand stuck in a bookmaker's? Can you handle things mentally when you can't pick a bet for a whole month? You're just losing almost every bet you place. And you have to not only not earn money, but also lose money. Can you handle that? Because if you can't handle that, you shouldn't be sports betting. Because like I said, all of those things are going to happen to the best sports bettors on the entire planet. So I'm speaking from experience here, boys. You know, I have my fingers in many different pies at this time of this video. I make money in many different ways, but it wasn't always like that. There's been times in my life where the only amount of money I've earned is from sports betting. And although I always recommend people to earn money from multiple avenues, there has been times where I haven't done that, and I've earned my money only from sports betting. So I'm speaking from experience. I've gone through all of this. I still struggle with this daily. I still go through the mental aspect of the game daily. And to be honest with you, and I'm just ranting at the end of this video now, but to be honest with you, I don't want to be sports betting in 10 years, 15 years. I couldn't imagine myself having a family full of kids and me sports betting, because it's too stressful, man. It's super stressful. It's not consistent. I've earned so much money from sport. I've earned more money than most people will earn in their entire life from sports betting, right? And that's a fact. And I'm only young compared to most of the people's full lifetime, right? But I don't want to be doing something that's earned me so much money in 10 years. I don't want to be doing it because it's just too stressful, and I'd rather get out of the game. Get in and get out, you know? And I've been in the game for 15 years now, so it's not really get in and get out. But I'm gonna cut the video there because at this point I'm just ranting, but hopefully the video has helped you in understanding if you actually want to become a full-time sports bettor or not. And if you actually do, if you really do, even after this video, then, you know, these 3 steps are the things that you definitely need to understand and go through before you do that. So good luck with your bets this weekend, boys, and I will be back with another video soon, and I'll see you in that video.